fallout is what we're talking about today. Who made the cut on Locked On Chiefs?
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, friends and neighbors. Hope that you are doing well here on Locked On Chiefs. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We have a great show for you today. We are going to get with Matt Derick, who's on the ground in Kansas City for the rookie camp, and give us the intakes that we didn't get from everywhere else. And we are also going to make sure that we are in the know on the offensive side, the defensive side, and everything that comes with it. We're brought to you today by our pals, because you have to have pals in this business one way or the other. Today it's game time. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNFL to get $20 off of your first purchase. Terms do apply. But we are going to get it covered. It's ChiefsDigest.com and Chiefs Digest here on the YouTube platform, where you can find Matt and all of his work. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, as well as NFL33.com, where I cover the league, and RGR Football, where you can get a little bit more about your Chiefs. Welcome in. And Matt, it's all rookies all the time, except just before we started this show, had a little bit of news about a guy that's had a rough offseason in Rashid Rice. Can you give us the latest? This is just breaking, and I know you're on top of it.
Yeah, it's a report out of Dallas from WFAA, and they obviously have been investigating the Rashid Rice situation and the traffic accident fairly closely, but they're reporting that now the Dallas police are investigating an incident in which Rashid Rice allegedly hit a photographer at a club on Monday night. Very, developing situation. We don't really have any of the facts at this point, just other than the WFAA report that there is an investigation going into it. It's only breaking in the last 15 minutes. It's another, obviously, incident that Rashid Rice did not need to be having on this offseason. So we'll see what happens going forward. And obviously, presumption of innocence over guilty is an allegation in the situation of certainly like this. Proceed carefully, but we will see how this impacts his availability with the Chiefs as they're getting ready to go into the phase 3 here in a couple of weeks of OTAs. Previously, the Chiefs had said that his off-the-field issues in Dallas were not going to have any impact on his availability, but we don't know if there's a second incident that becomes involved, whether that will impact his availability with the club.
Yeah, that's going to be the question mark. And it's tough to see. This has been an offseason after an incredible rookie season that I think has just gotten away from him a little bit. Let's hope that they can get this sorted out, and that maybe this is overblown at this point. We're going to find out. We'll have more details for you folks as more details become available, and we will check back in with Matt. In the meantime, make sure you like, sub, and hit the bell here on YouTube, where all of the Locked On Network is for free every day, just like we are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and every audio platform out there. You can get us for free 5 days a week. Plus, you everydayers know that, and we very much appreciate you. You are all on the text line, and that's the easiest way to get breaking news, 816-357-8781, and you can get on there as well. Despite a little bit of tough news for Rashid Rice yet again, a lot of guys out there trying to be Rashid Rice at One Arrowhead Drive over the last few days. Very much, and I want to hear your explanation of this before I say something silly. This is not real football. Can you tell us what rookie camp really is on the field for these guys?
Yeah, and I'll be complimentary of the rookies in this case, and the coaches too, and probably most particularly of Chris Oladokun. This looked closer to real football than anything I've seen in a while for a rookie mini camp. Normally Andy Reid comes into the press conference after the day 3 ready to pull his hair out about watching the game of football be mangled as it was over the weekend, that then progressed slowly to being almost real football by Monday. But I tell you what, this was a little bit more organized. It's an indoctrination. I mean, obviously you've got your draft picks and you've got undrafted free agents there. So, in this case, Chiefs had about 25 players there, plus, some guys who were signed up, like I mentioned, Oladokun, some guys who were under the contract that had signed earlier, like some who were The reserve future deals had signed. Some, are just anybody who's still a first-year player who hasn't accrued a full season, which is why Odokin is eligible to be there, hasn't accrued a full season, come out and be able to be on the field. So, about 35 players who are, true Chiefs at this point, about another 40 players that were tryout basis. They're there because they're rookies, undrafted free agents looking for a job. There's some veteran tryout players there too. So it's a pretty big collection, but it serves two purposes. One is to indoctrinate all the people that are new to your team into how an NFL practice works. What's the process? How to get where the locker room is. What's your code to the building? I mean, you name it. It's all of that because these rookies they go away for a week and then they're going to come back for the last week of the second phase of offseason workouts, and they're expected to hit the ground running. So this is a time for them to figure out all of that stuff, to figure out, just how NFL practice works, what the expectations are going to be from them. And the other half of it is to give these guys, your tryout guys, a chance, to see what they've got. These are players that, Chiefs would have considered signing, didn't have room for on their 90-man roster. Maybe there's some players like these veterans who've been guys they've been interested in the past, but wanted to get a look at. It's just to give these guys another shot to say, wait a minute, this is a player that we were on the fence about, whether or not that they had it to play in the NFL. So let's bring him in, see if there's something there. Jody Fortson was one of those guys. So, you can find players in these tryout bases that come in. So it's nothing. It's not nothing. But what is it? I mean, they run it as close as they can to an NFL practice. So it's generally just like the Chiefs would go through a Wednesday, Thursday, and a Friday practice as far as timeline goes. So, it's not a true practice, and they're not, working in the full playbook. I mean, they're getting a vanilla version to just kind of see what they can do, get their feet wet, that kind of thing. I mean, it's not, and there's no contact. So that's what a rookie minicamp is for the most part.
I think that's probably a good thing. And I want to run down both sides of the ball, what the draft class looks like. We're going to do that coming up next here on the Locked On Podcast Network, folks. Lot goes into getting prepared for everything that you need, no matter what you're doing. And if you have passion and drive and patience, that's the formula for winning championships. And it also is what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and keep it at its peak performance, like superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and everything in between, whether you're into speed, power, or style. eBay Motors has you covered one way or the other with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You're going to be in business. And that makes it guaranteed every single time or your money back. With the eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is going to fit no matter what, because eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, you're not burning cash. I don't want to burn cash, and I don't want to burn time either. That's the other one. With all the parts that you need and the prices that you want, take it easy and make yourself an MVP. Bring home that huge win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only and exclusions do apply. The eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. The NBA playoffs are off and running, and whether you want to see your favorite team, I want to see the Nuggets, you can get the deals that you're looking for, whether it's in a specific zone of the arena, last minute, or even one of those flash deals. Make sure that you check out Gametime, because last minute deals are up to 60% off on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, pretty much anything. You can find a zone specific of the venue that you want to get into and get deals there as well, and it's all in pricing. You get to see the seat before you buy it, and it's 110% if you find a lower price. That is their lowest price guarantee, and it's all at Gametime. It's super easy. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNFL. It's going to get you $20 off of your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, all you have to do is download the app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL. It's going to give you $20 off. It's Gametime. Get it today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, and it is guaranteed. You want to check out the Locked On Sports Today feed because it's 24/7. It gives you all the sports news you're looking for whenever you're looking for it. Check it out here on YouTube, the platform, or on Amazon Fire TV. You can get it at Locked On Sports Today. Matt, you can also get all your information at Chiefs Digest, whether it's here or at ChiefsDigest.com. A little bit here on the field is always a challenge, and the draft class has some big swings in it. No one more than Xavier Worthy, who I think started the weekend a little bit slow, got caught up rather quickly though, and a lot of folks started to panic in Kansas City. As you look at the camp as a whole, how do you feel about where Xavier Worthy is?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a progression from day 1 to day 3. I mean, certainly looked better each and more comfortable each and every day. And I'm going to give you a little bit of quick context on Saturday, because Saturday is the first day, and the players come and do their media. I think Xavier was certainly a little anxious. A lot of the players are a little anxious and hyped up when they get out there. But too, I mean, the weather was pretty wet. So even though there's a drainage and the fields have been covered, I think there was still a little dampness in the air and on the ball. So that could be a factor. But here's the other thing out of context that really, I think, got kind of missed, is that Chiefs players, and players, receivers, running backs come out, and for their stretch and conditioning, they receive kicks from the jugs machine. So that's their session. I mean, they just receive balls that way. It's kind of a pseudo special teams warm-up period. So they're getting balls from the jugs machine, and the wind was whipping at the practice fields on Saturday. It was probably 25 miles an hour with some gusts too. And there's a reason why, like, Harrison Butker doesn't practice kicking at the practice fields. He goes over to the stadium because there's nothing blocking the wind. I mean, it's just blowing like crazy. So I know that the players were already having a little bit of trouble with that. And then after the stretch period, they opened up with the special teams period, and it was a punt period. So they had Ryan Reckow, I think I'm trying to pronounce his last name correctly, and Matt Areza, who were doing the punting, and they were alternating kicks. Well, not only are they dealing with the wind, but these guys also, Matt Areza is a left-footed punter. So now you've got guys who are receiving punts from essentially 3 different sources: the jugs machine, 2 different punters, and one of them's left-footed. So add in the wind, and the ball was going everywhere. Every single one of the kick returners looked terrible on Saturday. And you know what? I think that did flow over into the rest of practice, because I think their confidence was kind of shattered. And it was the rest of the afternoon was really trying to build up the receivers and the running backs the rest of the day. Saturday was a hard day for everybody, but it was the progression on Sunday indoors and then Monday back outside in pretty good conditions that guys like Worthy looked really good. I mean, and obviously the speed, the routes, the crispness, that was all there on Saturday. You could see it. So then it was just, hey, is this just a rough day, maybe a little anxious, and then you've got some really difficult circumstances? And based on what I saw on Saturday or Sunday and Monday, I'd say absolutely that's the case. And from talking to people in the organization, yeah, they were very comforted by what they saw on Sunday and Monday. Really looks the part, seems comfortable, can run multiple routes, seemed like he was going to get a good grasp of everything, has a high football IQ. So yeah, I mean, to me, the videos and the memes, and even if you're a member over at Chiefs Digest, you got to see my B-roll of 9 minutes of practice, and there were some Worthy drops in there. I mean, that's what happened. So we can't sugarcoat it. It did happen. But things were much better on Sunday and Monday, rather.
I'm glad that turned around. I would call him one of the standouts. I thought his feet were great from what I saw in just a few drills, including some of your footage. Who else on the offensive side stood out to you?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I thought that there were a lot of players that stood out. I mean, it was a really good camp for pretty much everybody. And it's difficult to judge offensive linemen in a camp like this because there's no contact. It's true about the defensive linemen too, but there's no contact. So, you're really just, blocking with your feet and your hands. But in that regard, hey, Kingsley Suamadi looked really good. You can definitely see why the Chiefs liked him. Obviously, I think we saw the same guy in his press conference that we talked to in the Zooms last week during the draft. Very likable kid. Seems like he's really fitting in. But you know what? I mean, I think that if the Chiefs were worried about their running back room, and I think they should have been going into this, I think they got some choices about, who they might want to put in that running back room, because I think there were a few guys that had some really good moments. Monty Bailey is built like a bowling ball. He's not quite as big as a Maurice Jones-Drew, but you know what? He's got a little juice in him. Hassan Hall, I was also really impressed with. He showed really good hands, strong route running. I mean, he was absolutely wide open on a wheel route on Sunday that, obviously showed, the ability to just slip out of the backfield completely unnoticed. And he did a really good job. Carson Steele is an interesting guy because that might be more of a fullback player, that if the Chiefs want to go back to having a fullback on the roster, Carson Steele is the candidate for that. And so I think that he was really impressive. I mean, there were like 3 or 4 running backs that I think that the Chiefs could go with as just a different flavor and say like, okay, well, you know what, this guy's got a little juice, or this guy could do something for us. So I think that it's going to be interesting during OTAs and going into training camp to see how that battle for maybe the last running back spot, because I think the Chiefs could go a lot of different directions. Wide receiver was a little hit and miss. I mean, honestly, the guy who impressed me the most outside of Worthy was probably Jaron Hayek from Villanova, that, the Chiefs did end up signing on Monday. You went to Chiefs Digest, you'd have known about him on Sunday, because I told you that he was a guy to watch. And indeed, I mean, he's the only tryout player that the Chiefs signed so far. So, I think there was a handful of players, but all the draft picks for sure. And I haven't even talked about, Jared Wiley yet, but Jared Wiley, just as impressive, if not more so, than Xavier Worthy. He didn't really have a bad moment at all. There weren't drops. There weren't any issues. This kid looks the part, and, he was built up as being this, block first, pass, catching second tight end. And I can't think of probably a more, perplexing scouting report, because he is absolutely fit and trim, almost looks thin to me. Looks like he could certainly put on some more muscle even. I mean, I think you could easily add some bulk on him and it would not be a problem at all, but he's got the size and the shape of a Travis Kelce. I'm not going to put the pressure on being the next Travis Kelce on anybody. But is this guy a potential starting tight end in the NFL? Absolutely he is.
Yeah, I think in our draft guide over at Rogue Analytics, we classified him as a balanced tight end that can do both, is functional enough in blocking that he can grow into a guy that can line up like Kittle and get some things done. George Kittle's probably the best blocking tight end in the league at the moment, and he's not the thickest. He's not the bulkiest. He's certainly not built like Gronkowski or anything like that. So I do think there's room for some variability. But the guys that he's blocking also get variability as well. We're going to talk about the guys that stood out on the defensive side of the ball coming up next. Now, when you want to get after it and you want to compete a little bit, we're going to talk about spending more time on Monopoly Go, because I know what you're saying, flag on the play. We already talked about this. Well, we're going to talk about it a little bit more just because there's a lot of great stuff in this game. You can team up with your friends for time tournaments. You can work together to build up each other's boards. And the more you win, the more awesome prizes you can unlock. And it's all in Monopoly Go. There's so much that you can get. Unique stickers you can trade back and forth with your friends and complete albums for prizes, cool new playing pieces that travel the board with you and become your moniker, hilarious emojis and taunting your friends with when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults, a part of the game. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and is exciting every day and constantly changing the tournaments and challenges that you're in. A ton of unique mini games, digging for treasure, and robot pachinko machines. There's always something new on the timed events to help you win big, and the massive multipliers that everyone can win when your rent gets into the frenzy kind of stage. Whether you're trying to have some fun and discover Monopoly, it's all set for you to come off the bench. Go download it now for free at Google Play and the App Store. It is free, and it is Monopoly Go. As we come back, make sure you check out the Locked On Sports Today feed. You're going to like it. It's 24/7. It's going to give you all the sports. Now, I know it's football slow season. I'm not going to call it off season. It's slow season because you get content like this where we are talking about defenders as well. Now, back to the last segment on the offensive side, as you said, the defensive linemen don't get a lot out of this either. Honestly, I was probably going to refer to this as the for the linemen, the hang out with Uncle Andy phase of mini camp here. But for everybody else, especially the linebacker group and the DB group, this is something where you can make a mark. And I think that actually happened. We saw the departure of Cole Christensen, which was a little bit last weekend. How did the linebacker crew look to you?
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting group because there weren't a lot of players. It was a mostly tryout group for the most part. I mean, there was a couple of players that the Chiefs had brought in that they had signed. The most impressive of which was the Jacobs kid from Penn State. I think he had the best camp of them all. Looks like he could be a middle linebacker type as well, in addition to playing multiple roles. So that I think is the one that stood out to me as being the best. There was a couple of guys, and now I'm completely blanking on his name because I don't have it in front of me, but he wore number 64 this weekend. Was another player that was in my 5 to watch. So if you go to Chiefs, I guess you can look it up there. Let me see if I can't track it down real quick. But I thought he had a really, really good couple of days as well. I don't really get the sense, though. I mean, outside of Jacobs, that the Chiefs think has definitely got some potential and everything, that that they're probably going to be looking for any linebacker help. I mean, that's one thing that they seem to be okay with their depth, even if they don't end up bringing back a Cole Christensen at some point, still a possibility. A couple of the veterans that they released last week right before minicamp, always a chance that they could come back. But was really impressed, in the secondary. I think that there were a couple of players that definitely stood out. Obviously Kamal Hadden being one of them. He had an interception on Monday. Hey, was he going to get beat sometimes? Yeah, he had some tough assignments going up against Worthy on occasion. But I thought he looked really good. I mean, still needs some work, but you could see that there were definitely, reasons why the Chiefs were interested in him. I think he's, showed some pretty good reaction and good speed, good length. Miles Battle really stood out because he's just so freaking big. That dude is one of the bigger defensive backs that I've ever seen. But and so once again, I mean, that's the kind of player you can see that just has the tools that you could give Dave Merritt and see what he could do with. But I don't think there's any doubt. Jaden Hicks is Steve Spagnuolo's new teacher's pet from this group. Got a lot of special instructions from him. The moment that really stood out to me was on Sunday during position drills, while the rest of the defensive backs were over with either Dave Merritt or Donald D'Alessio going through his drills. Hicks was on the middle of the field out with Steve Spagnuolo with a couple of assistants and going through, his keys, and what Spags, what Hicks said they were working on day one was, disguising where he was going to be lining up and disguising where he was going. So the quarterback wouldn't get an idea about, what his plan was before the snap. And so, yeah, I mean, there was an assistant who would be lined up as either a running back, quarterback, tight end, 2 of those different positions. And then he would give the play to Jaden Hicks. And then he would tell what he wanted, the 2 assistants to do to give him simulate a look for him. And then afterwards would tell, Hicks what he did right, what he did wrong. And that was about maybe 10, 15 minutes of just individualized instructions. So I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, Jaden Hicks is definitely the star pupil right now, getting the one-on-one work from Steve Spagnuolo himself.
Well, he's in that magic area, right, that we've seen other guys drafted in his area come in. I mean, when you are that 4th round pick, 120s, 130s, wherever you go, this was the area L'Jarius Sneed was in. You've seen similar picks for Brian Cook. Jamari Conner was a little bit later, but got a similar treatment. That says something to me that even on the first day, if you're getting that kind of attention from Steve Spagnuolo, that you're in the plan and that you are in the mix to be somebody that not only makes the roster, but is going to play teams to start and make it on the field and play some defense for you. Is that how you read it as well?
Yeah, and I mean, let's be real. I mean, what it looked like that Spagnuolo was working with him on was blitzing. And that's the key, because that's probably the one thing that he obviously hasn't been taught to the extent that Steve Spagnuolo can teach you how to blitz. So, and that's one thing that the Chiefs want all of their guys to be able to do, is to blitz and disguise it. And so, that to me stood out because, remember, I mean, even though he played a lot of different spots, he talked about being asked to play a little bit more free safety here in Kansas City versus strong, where, he spent more of his time in Washington. So, yeah, I mean, you can see it. I mean, that part of this is about wanting him to get exposure to new things that maybe he didn't do as much of in college, because they want him to play every spot. They think he can line up in the slot, box, deep end, you name it. I mean, they think Jaden Hicks can do it all.
And it feels like the more and more, I would classify him as more of he could play split. I don't know if I want him single high, but split down to robber, certainly in the box, in situational nickel, right? So 4 roles at least. Shamar Connor, very similar, can play nickel, can play robber, can go play high if you need him to. Same thing with Brian Cook. It's more of the do all the roles, much like the wide receivers are asked to do, and know 3 positions on the field, so that all your safeties are interchangeable, and they're getting progressively younger, with Justin Reed obviously being the leader of the group. This feels like they're more and more prepared to be able to throw crazy wrinkles and adapt to attrition as they go through what is likely to be another 20-game season. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, it really does. I mean, what are you building this team for? I mean, absolutely. It's Shamari Connor, can play the same role that he did last year plus, so it won't be just, being the dime safety and playing in the slot. They feel like he can obviously do more of that. Maybe, even play more, be technically a nickel corner. Because you do have L'Jarius Sneed's loss. So maybe, you're using him more in that role and getting him more work that way. But you're obviously going to get Jaden Hicks as much experience at the, this season as you can, because you do want to utilize that depth, keep guys fresh, be able to give different looks, be able to deal with injuries, especially because, you don't know. Brian Cook looks like he might get on the field a little bit during some drills and OTAs, but probably won't be a full go until training camp. So, with a player coming back from an injury like that, you'd like to have some more depth, but the Chiefs at the end of this season need to be able to make the decision. Do you sign Justin Reed long-term, or do you feel good enough with the 3 guys you got with Cook, Connor, and Hicks to go forward without Justin Reed?
That is going to be one of the decision points coming next year. Thanks for all the insight, and thanks for lending us your eyes when we can't be there on the practice field, Matt.
Do my best, Ryan. I appreciate you.
Everybody check out ChiefsDigest.com as well as Matt's channel here at Chiefs Digest on YouTube. Make sure you like, sub, and hit the bell here on this channel, and get over to Spotify and Apple Podcasts to get us there. That is it for us today. We have a great show coming for you tomorrow as we break down who else can step forward. Are there other signings out there? And what happens next in the Rashid Rice saga is what I'm going to call it. So don't miss the show tomorrow. We appreciate you spending time with us today. We will definitely be with you all week long and all off season long, 5 days a week plus, like we always are. We appreciate your support.